Fearless Authenticity podcast is still on a break, but I got a great interview for my radio show that I thought I would share the full version here. It's with Academy Award winner, MacArthur Fellow, chair of the playwriting program at Yale, and Steppenwolf Ensemble member, Tarell Alvin McCraney. You remember him as the playwright who won an Oscar for his work on Moonlight in 2017. And now we're talking about his play at the Steppenwolf called Choir Boy. So Tarell Alvin McCraney, so excited to talk to you. I saw Choir Boy over the weekend, and oh my goodness. Okay, so I'd never seen it before, and I feel like, and especially since the show I do is about old school music, I feel like music is a character in Choir Boy as well. So let's talk about, tell people what kind of the premise of the play is, and then how music plays into it.
So Choir Boy is a play where set at Charles R. Drew Preparatory School for Boys that has a choir that sings gospel and spiritual music as a way to promote and gain attention for the school. It's being led by Ferris Young, who is, a gifted singer and also an obviously queer young man. And the school is and the play is basically about his want to, be a part of the legacy that is Drew, and whether Drew can make space for him.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about your work, which I first encountered with the movie Moonlight and your Oscar that you have for it, which is so unreal. A lot of your work, to me, that I have experienced is about coming of age. It's about that moment in a young man's life where things change for him. And I think all of us can relate to a coming of age story from our own growth, right? Sure. But there's this piece of it that you seem to explore and go deeper with. What is that about for you?
Well, and particularly in Choir Boy, I think, and even in Moonlight, I think a part of that coming of age is also about the community coming of age. Right? Like, how do we make space for our young people and the legacy that they want to be a part of, but also leave? So we often think about Negro spirituals or spiritual music like Wade in the Water or Rockin' Jerusalem or songs like that as a part of a long history legacy steeped in, the enslavement of our people, their freedom, their fight for civil rights, especially with songs like Eyes on the Prize. Right? So all of that comes with a deep, deep, beautiful, rich history and legacy as we celebrate Juneteenth, just gone, right? And then we think about folks of today, our young folks of today. When we think about the kids who are under, 18 years old, learning about that legacy, some of them celebrating Juneteenth for the first time. What does it mean to hand them that beautiful, amazing, powerful, rich history and let them do what they need to with it? Because even though they may not understand Wade in the Water in the way we understood it, or the way our grandparents understood it, or the way their parents understood it, they are definitely going through their own struggle. They definitely have to keep their eyes on the prize. They definitely have some waters to wade through, right? And so a part of what Choir Boy is talking about is like, how do we make space? How do we may not understand everything that they're doing, right? We don't understand the lyrics of all of their music. Right? We don't understand the colors. We don't understand the nails sometimes. There are things we don't get, just like our parents didn't get us, but they want to and are proud to be deeply connected to a legacy that we have to hand to them, and we have to trust, or can we trust, that they are going to add and expand to that legacy in all the rich and beautiful ways that we know they will and can. Right. And so that, to me, that's that part of the legacy, or the part of the coming of age that's so important. It's like, we have to make room for them to come of age and to make mistakes and to still be, all the great, amazing human things that they're going to be. And we as a community have to get ready for that. Sometimes we just aren't. Sometimes and we're so resistant. And that part that's the thing that I think is so interesting to me, because we're always worried about well, what are they going to do? What's the future going to hold? And yet we're not making room and space for them to figure it out, right?
And we're quick to say it's for the culture, right?
Right.
But the culture has to move forward and it has to expand. Talk to me about how music in particular plays that role. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I especially want to dive into the way you combine secular and spiritual in this particular play, and how music is a character in and of itself. There's a moment, I don't want to give away anything in the play. I always struggle with this when I see it. There's a moment where there's an a cappella LTD song with the emotion that comes through. It changed the way I experience that song now, because I'm seeing it from the man's point of view as opposed to, and how he's feeling, as opposed to a man singing it to me.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think there's something important. I mean, again, that is the legacy of music for our culture, for Black people, right? Our music has always been both sacred and secular, right? It is both, right? And it's the reason why when Ray Charles started playing his music, people got so mad, because they're like, wait, that's gospel. He's singing gospel music in these juke joints and in these clubs, right? Our music has always, even with the banning of drums in the Caribbean, it's always held both what we have personally going on and what we have going on spiritually, and that to me is profoundly why music is again a part of the play, but not only a part of, like you said, a character. It's the time, it's the moment where we're watching young people use that legacy to express themselves, to get closer to each other. And that's what that music is for. I mean, when you go to church, people talk about it all the time. It's like the music is there to help that connectivity, that intimacy with God. And that music also helps that intimacy between each other. There's something in it that we understand and know. I remember the first time I heard Fela Kuti's music as a teenager, and just thought, oh, well, I've been listening to this music my entire life and didn't know it. Didn't know that this was a part of my heritage and legacy. And also there are things in that music you don't need to explain. And that's so important. It's so, there are things, and so even if you gave it away by saying like, because you didn't, but even if you say like, oh, there's this in it, there's such a connectivity to the R&B, to the rock, to the, that our music has, that once these young people understand how powerful it is, right, they start asking us other questions like, wait, this music is really powerful and has space for me, right? They literally have a conversation around like, wait, I understand what the legacy of the music is, but what it's doing for me right now.
And going forward, right?
Yeah.
I also am wondering, why did you choose to put there's an insert in the program that I thought was lovely, because it gave me permission to be me in the theater. I think a lot of times when we as Black people go to theater, especially seeing each other's work, we want to act like we are in church. When you hear gospel music, there's a reaction we have. When somebody says something true, there is that call and response that doesn't necessarily happen in other cultures.
Right.
And so there was a little insert in the program that said, feel free to do what you need to do, and how, wait, let me see if I saved it, because I thought it was so, here it is. I usually don't do this.
That's all right.
Yes, but you said an invite to the audience to bless it. And what made you choose to put this in there so that people could feel free to do? Because I sure felt free.
I have to give it all the credit to my friend and colleague Dominique Morsu, who is a writer, who is an activist from Detroit. And in her work, I've gone to a couple of her plays just this past summer, and I remember going into the theater and being like, I'm about to watch some Black people with a lot of not Black people, and feeling like, well, how do I conduct myself? Like, how do I make sure that I don't want to show out and like embarrass Dominique, right? So how do I make sure that I still enjoy myself? And I looked in the program, and she was like, hey, already, I would just let you know it's Black in here, right? And that's what we came to do. And so I thought, you know what, this is, I don't necessarily know that this is something that I would do again, but specifically, you're in Steppenwolf, which is my home theater. I'm an ensemble here. You are doing a work that is deeply Black, and it has our most sacred music to it. I need to let y'all know that I did not come to stop your shout. Right, I didn't do this so y'all have to feel like you have to put on your respectability here. I feel if something moves, you move with it, right?
And there was a lot in it. I'm glad that you gave us that space because listen, I cried, I shouted, and I was like, oh hell no, one time because I was acting up. I feel bad for the people who had never experienced that before.
I mean, you helped them know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. Like if that's what you were feeling and experiencing, we need that because the audience doesn't know this, but the actors are used to. I mean, these are young men who grew up in singing this kind of music, understanding that call and response. And so if they don't hear it, they get a little like, well, what's going on, right? So when they do hear, okay, cool, they know that they are in conversation with someone, even if they can't turn around and talk to you specifically. They know that they are with folks, and that's why they showed up today, right? They showed up to show out.
And baby, did they? These, I almost said boys, but they're not boys. They wait. As I've gotten to that age where I can say, well, they boys under me.
Right.
But these young men showed out, like their voices and the blending, like God bless.
And they're doing it. There's no, I mean, it's a cappella. There's no orchestration. There's very little amplification except for some touches in the back when they're too far up stage, but that's them. That's their voice.
And it's gorgeous. I love every second of it. What is it like for you? Because this is a play that you wrote that it premiered about 10 years ago, maybe longer?
Almost 2013, yeah.
And now it's back here and it's at your home theater. What is that experience like for you?
I mean, it's different because the world is so, I sometimes tell people, there are plays that I've written that we don't need to do anymore, right? Because, the world has shifted and changed, and there are other plays or other works that we can lean into those, right? This play, I did not expect this to be wildly relevant. And it's really sad that it is, especially, I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. And recently, this is exactly the stuff we're talking about. We're talking about bullying in school. We're talking about don't say gay. We're talking about taking out critical, quote unquote, critical race theory in schools, even though they've never taught critical race theories in primary or high schools. And, just that kind of censorship of history, of legacy, of who people are in my home state, but across the country is real. And I just didn't think that it would be, I just couldn't imagine 10 years ago that this would be, I was like, we're on the way for this. Things are getting better. Remember that slogan? It's gonna get better. And now I have young people saying like, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm afraid of, I don't know what my parents will say, or if they found out, or if the school tells me, because now the school has to tell parents if their children are, or seeming like they're gay at school, or if they express transgender thoughts or feelings or acts towards transitioning, the school is obligated to report those students to their parents. And I know growing up, I did a lot of peer education. I did a lot of work. There were a lot of students who ran away back then. And there were a lot of students who felt home life was unsafe. And, with all of that's happening, there's not a lot of safe spaces for them. And so, again, I think the time to re-examine how we in the community take care of our own, all of us, all of our young folks is now. We have to know what we're doing, what space we're making for them.
Right, because it feels like op culture is alive. Like they're turning everybody into narcs for no reason. And here's the thing that I find interesting, and I wonder if this particular play will always be relevant because of the human aspect of coming into your own.
Sure.
And that's part of that coming of age thing you talk about so much, that is relevant to everybody. But when you feel other, when you feel different, no matter how that's expressed, whether it's through race, gender identity, sexual orientation, whatever it is, I think that we all attach to that in some way. So I think the relevance, even when things do get better, will always be there. The thing that
I love that you said when they get better. That's amazing. Sorry.
Well, I feel that from your play. I feel the hope. Even though there are some really sad, hard moments, there was a moment where I was boo-hooing, like literally reaching for tissue. And again, I don't want to give anything away, but it was about a moment between the straight young man and Anthony and Ferris, and how each of our identities, no matter what they are, can find a place for love for each other.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah, that's that old school bell hooks, notation on love when she talks about all about love, which is that I can make myself uncomfortable. I can stretch myself a little to make space for you, and that's love, right? Like that's my ability to love is my ability to just go past what might be comfortable to make space for you and your betterment, right? If I know that someone said it like a tree. If I know that if I extend my roots just a little bit this way, or I extend my branch just a little bit this way, it'll give you just enough cover for you to prosper. That's love, right? No one needs to suffer for anyone else's betterment. But if I know that if I just give you a little bit more space, you'll grow and get better and feel better and be enriched, then that's my job in love. And I think that's you're hitting on the key there, which is why I'm glad that Steppenwolf did the play. At the end of the day, it is about love, and how not a love we cannot see, but a love that we can feel.
Okay, that hit. That part hit, because it is a lot of people talk and they don't feel, and I think sometimes, and I realize we are at our time. Do you have a couple more minutes?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Because I'm loving this conversation, and this is what I want to dig in, because this is the thing that I thought of, especially the exchanges between the headmaster of the school and Ferris, when he was talking about basically saying, babe, I see you, but look, if you could just turn it down a little bit. And I feel like in our community, there is a push me, pull me, especially in the church, especially when it comes to our Black voices, especially when it comes to our queer Black voices, because they exist in these spaces. They have been encouraged in these spaces.
Absolutely.
But only within certain constraints.
Yeah.
What is it? Because it's acknowledged and explored in the play, in Choir Boy, but what is it that you hope changes with that? Because I think that our conversation with queerness in the Black community is different than the larger community, because it's almost like it's this acknowledgement, but also this rejection at the same time, this welcoming, but this not so much. Hold up.
One of the things that I think is so thrilling about, and one of the reasons why I keep talking about the conversation or Choir Boys being like, it is a conversation for us, right? It's about us, it's for us, get in it, right? So if you come to see it, know that I'm talking to you, and that, and I want you to talk back, because I have always experienced, and this has been my experience, that in the community, in the community that I grew up in, which was majority Black, there was room, there was acknowledgement. You knew Uncle John or Cousin Pete or Sister Teresa. You knew that they loved differently, right? And that there was room for the outlier. But just like there was room for a whole bunch of other things in our community that, we make room for that uncle who has to get a little lit before he starts telling them, but his barbecue is good. So we love them anyway. Like, there's spaces for all of who we are in our, there's space for us. And the scarcity model comes from, I think, outside, telling us there's only room for a certain kind of Black, right? A respectable kind, a good Negro, right? And I think that sometimes gets in, like, that infection, if I can use that term, sort of goes throughout, and we think that that's the way we must present, when we know in truth, like, we don't need to present nothing of them. We just need to do what's best for this, this community. What's best for this community is making sure that all the talent and all the brilliant thinking and ways of thinking are included in the ways we make decisions about how we go forward, right? Because the more we have different takes on things, the more we can go, hey, that might not be the best color for that building. What if we painted it that color? Or what if this building had an atrium so the kids could play at nap time, or you know what I mean, or during playtime, but be secure? Like, the folks who are going to think creatively differently, than everybody. We need those voices. You need those outlier voices, those visionaries, those folks who are going to. And for a long time, what we've done is forced our creative minds, our free thinkers, our people who have to think differently or feel differently out of our community. And those talents go elsewhere, and they're enriching the lives of other communities and other countries. And that's
sad.
Not only sad, it's silly.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we're always talking about, like, well, we need in the Black community. We need all hands on deck.
And here's the thing: the civil rights movement was full of that as well. I mean, what would it have been without Bayard Rustin?
Right.
What would it have been? What would all of these things have been without people, James Baldwin, all these voices that have happened throughout history that were not what people considered to be the norm or to be acceptable in the greater picture, but yet they are completely revered by us.
Right.
My final question, because I could talk to you forever.
I appreciate it.
I talk about fearless authenticity in my podcast. It's the theme of a lot of things. And I think a lot of our success and satisfaction in life is based on that. And one of the things I find so amazing about your work, and Choir Boy in particular, especially in light of the other work of yours that I have seen, is how relentless you are in your expression of who you truly are and telling your story in the realest, most open way, because much of your work is based in your being. It's not about this imaginary thing, which is fine as well. It's another way of expressing things.
Absolutely.
What is it that made it possible for you to express your truest, most authentic self through your work and see? I mean, I think the Oscar, the MacArthur Fellow, being a playwright, leading the playwriting program at Yale, where one of your alma maters, and being here in Chicago, where you went to DePaul, like, all of those things are real full circle. And I think that they're very much connected to what you've committed to in your voice. What is that like for you? How did you get there?
Well, I come from to be honest, I just have to, I have been in service of something that I think is God-given for a long time, which is an ability to serve, right? I come from a long line of teachers, of pastors, of librarians, of educators, of, folks who really take service to heart. And so every time something happens or I reach another platform, or I move to another place, my ability to figure out, how does this connect to those around me? How can I enrich those with whatever been given access to, is the first and foremost on my mind. And so it feels like tithe to me, right? It feels like the more I sort of just make sure I'm giving it just keeps giving back. And so I kind of can't get out of it in a wonderful way. Right? It doesn't, and something I wouldn't want to get out. The more I sort of pour into it, the community keeps going, wait, so you have a question about that? And I go, yeah, I do. Let's talk about it. Let's engage it. Let's pull it between each other. And then finally, I know I talk a lot about in terms of the intellectual question of plays and things, but I find there's so much beauty in the world around me. And I remember growing up in Liberty City. I mean, you know, when you watch something like Moonlight, it's hard to not imagine. But like I would sit in that neighborhood, and yeah, you know, it was definitely poor, but it was also stunningly beautiful. Just being able to hear people, the way people talk to each other, the way they converse, you know, good morning, yeah, all right, yeah, you know, like the utterance of that, to be able to be in reception of that, to be able to take that and like build worlds with that and allow folks to see that, to frame it and to remember it, is a privilege. It's a privilege for me to be able to feel that, to see it, and to engage in it. So hearing, you know, these spirituals that I grew up with all my life, some of them Wesleyan gospel songs, some of them Negro spirituals made, you know, born in enslavement, but nonetheless, they are, as W.E.B. Du Bois calls these sort of spirit songs, these soul songs that I mean, I can't imagine a life where you hear that kind of sound coming from a room in your house, or coming from down the street, or I mean, just in quotidian way. Like you go to the corner store and the mom back in the back, or the brother who is making the sausage sandwiches in the back of the store is humming something like that, those songs and those keys, and you can't, and like not to be able to hold that, you know, it's a privilege. And so that's where it comes from. I'm aware that I am blessed in that.
All right, I lied. That wasn't my last question.
Okay.
My very last question.
Oh, good.
What do you hope people walk out of the theater with after they see Choir Boy, after they see this piece of you? What is it that you hope they do with it when they walk out?
I hope folks are looking at how much room they make in their life for each other, right? Just like you said about that moment with AJ and Ferris, you know, how do we just, even with themselves, am I making room for my full self? Am I making room for the part of me that I might be uncomfortable with, that makes me uncomfortable sometimes, that makes me ask questions? Am I making room for it? And how? I really want folks to be thinking about that. And also, like, to tell a friend, right? I'm hoping that they tell their friend to come see it too.
I'm going to tell a whole lot of friends. Thank you so much for all your time today. I really appreciate it. I know I went over with it, but good. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I enjoyed Choir Boy. It really was a joy. And thank you for being you, Tarell. I really appreciate it. Check out Choir Boy at the Steppenwolf Theatre through July 24th. You can get tickets at steppenwolf.org.